Hello dear viewers, I'd like to remind you that we are now at the 6th Retail Week, and for the first time in the history of Retail Week we are running both online and offline sessions. Online sessions gives us a chance to attract even more speakers and to attract even more viewers. Classic offline sessions are being held in the World Trade Center, and this year we have an extensive program in both Russian and the English languages. Yesterday we had a great start with a massive turnout, with more than 600 guests attended, and we held more than 13 online sessions. At the plenary session called Russian Retail in Conditions of New Threats and Challenges, the Vice Minister of Industry and Trade, Viktor Yevtukhov, pointed out that this forum is a high intellectual and platform for exchanging the most cutting-edge experiences and ideas in the world of retail. At the plenary session, Denis Mantrov, the Minister of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation, delivered an opening speech.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear friends. I'm happy to welcome you all here at our 6th Forum of Trade and Consumer Market. And I would like to address all people who work in the industry, so you are on the front line during this challenging time, and you managed to keep up to the standards. Thank you so very much. So this year, it's for the first time that we have our forum in a combined forum, both online and offline, and of course it's not a substitute to a communication in person, but the most important thing for us is to hear your voices, because we really need an honest, transparent discussion on how we all can get through the times of the pandemic and how we focus on our further development in the post-COVID time. Basically, the situation got quite stable. It repeats the general economic trend. So in retail industry, we see that a decline of 4.8%, and every decline is something negative. But if you remember, some voices back in spring forecast even a worse dynamics of about 10%, and there were good reasons behind them. So a special crash test for the food segment was a big demand for fast-moving consumer goods, because our people were really scared about the potential shortage. So at the peak, demand for bread, dairy products, meat, and preserved products were 2.5 times higher. At the moment, we see that peak demand for the medicines and the health care products. But we could manage without food stamps and limitations and other shock time measures. So sadly, our society couldn't fully appreciate efforts taken by the government and the industry back then, during the first wave of the COVID. Also, there is a widely spread opinion that the food retail could make huge money on the COVID situation. It wasn't the case because there was a drop in April and May of 10% because our costs on logistics remained the same, but prices for the products were down. And food segments were in easier conditions because shops which sold food products didn't close. Non-food segment had tougher times with a drop of 40% in April. As for the services, times were even harder. According to experts' evaluations, 20% of cafes and restaurants couldn't survive at the times of limitations and had to close down. I'm giving you all those numbers intentionally because I would like to call you all for an open and transparent discussion of the problems caused by the pandemic.
Today, the pandemic is shaping the environment we're living in. So what has changed? I have to say that almost everything. Consumer behavior, approach to business strategies, and today businesses have to come up with new ideas, fresh creative approaches to struggle with these challenging times. Speakers argue if we should go fully online. Even though businesses understand the necessity of integrating digital technologies, we still hope that we will come back to normal life and to face-to-face communication. And according to Jan Duning, our key speaker, online won't completely suppress offline communication. So we integrate offline technologies as well. Now I would like us to listen to Jan Duning, who is the CEO of Magnet Retail Network and who is sharing his experience of coping with challenges during pandemic period. How did they manage to survive during these complex times and what was done to overcome these difficulties?
Let me first use this opportunity as well to explain a bit how the first wave of Corona went. Which of course was very much focused on consumers that were not clear how the future would look like, and they started to stock up, especially in the commodities. And I recall that period as a period in which the cooperation and the alignment between the retailers and Nimpron Tork, and especially EFTCO was very intense. And in my long experience, I have never seen a ministry so active and so involved into managing the situation. And I think from all of us retailers, there is a huge appreciation for that effort. Having said that, we understood, being the convenience business, that we were part of the smaller community. And having a country in a situation we were in March, April, we decided indeed to also be more supportive to the weaker groups. By the way, that support has gone on ongoing, and we have started recently as a second wave, especially in the East, came up as well. We have intensified this support as well. And we have extended the support to the doctors and the medical staff until today. We feel that as we have launched a sustainability strategy in April. And we feel that also is part of our sustainability and contribution to the environment. Then getting to what happens to consumers, it's clear that consumers feel less comfortable going to the stores. It is something that they're obliged to do, so therefore they come less often. But when they come, they clearly shop more. We as Magnet have clearly profited from the situation of closure and certain restrictions that were implemented in the beginning of the year. And especially our cosmetics business has had an exciting period the first half year. And then the good thing to see is that after the consumers have had that experience with Magnet, that we continue seeing the positive impact. And most recently, with a new wave coming in, we see again a similar situation. The consumers come less often, but their basket is growing tremendously. with regards to the regions and the smaller retailers, I acknowledge the fact that people in an environment where safety and value counts, that there is an inclination to go to more bigger brands, and I think that's what you've seen as well in the country. It's not only with us. I also think our peers X5 have profited from that by just being having a stronger brand equity and therefore convey more value to consumers. That consumers are inclined to go to those stores, and we have profited from that clearly. I do think, because knowing as well quite a lot of those smaller regional players, that they actually are also profiting quite well from the situation, as people do not want to travel around that much and go more for close. But it's clearly a period where big has helped the biggers to become bigger. And I understand the concern from the ministry point of view. I do think, by the way, that 39, if it comes to the top 5, is still a very low penetration. It's still a pretty scattered market, but the development is such that it should be monitored, and I acknowledge that. What we have done, as Mr. Jefterov knows, we're not only a retailer, we're also a producer. And we have seen that the production utilization has grown tremendously this year. We have started trying to sell our produce as well to external, so not only for our own use, but also for exports. We have started to connect to local retailers, but also retailers that are operating in the CIS environment, to start selling our produce there as well. What we have noticed is a growth, and I think it's evident in all the retailers, of consumers that are looking for value. So our own price entry level, Maya China, was growing strong, and that was actually also the initiative that we took to start opening discounters. And we have started opening discounters as of June, and those discounters are called My Price, Maya China, in which we are selling our own production primarily, and we add as well the local produce onto the shelves. And that has been such a success that we've recently actually decided to speed that development up. And we want to extend the pilot to 100 stores. And by the end of this year, I think we will reach around 50 already. Because it's clear that those propositions are in demand at the moment. People are looking for value, are looking for the best price quality relation. And having production in our own hands, we can manage that quite well. Then what other developments that we see is we were having partnerships with e-commerce. We were doing Yandex Lavka. We had with Brony Boy, a local supplier in Krasnodar, relationship, but we've extended that as well. We've extended that to Delivery Club and other players in the market. And just to give you an example, which is now a project that is 4 weeks old. We have growth weekend by weekend, and of course now that the second wave steps in, that might not be representative, but we have growth weekend by weekend of 60% of the orders placed on our stores. And as of last week, Tuesday, the 2nd of November, we also have our e-grocery, which we have tested recently, and actually the technical test was very successful. So we started as of last week to run our e-groceries as well. I do acknowledge the fact that Magniet traditionally was very late to the entry into e-commerce. As you might recall, that was not the only problem Magniet had. We had other problems as well. So I think we had to prioritize in what we needed to do. I think we're back with regards to being the reliable store around the corner. And now we move into also the hypermarkets and the e-commerce, because the hypermarkets needs improvement as well. And the e-commerce is something that we want to step in. I think it's a trend that is helped. It has a clear tailwind coming from the Corona period. But as you will see, there will be retention. So the moment the situation normalizes, and I believe that by the middle of 2021 we will be looking at a different environment. E-commerce is there to stay, and it will profit from Corona as well. But and there I agree with Alexander. The traditional brick and mortar retail is still prevalent. And that's also where Magniet will be focusing on with regards to its improvements and also with regards to developing different concepts that we believe are in demand in the market. Once again, and that's where I would like to finish, I would like to thank the Ministry. Also in this period with the second wave, I see that the support is growing and also the involvement, and I think that is very remarkable. Because you do not clearly see that in I would say the countries around us, and I think that's worth a big applause. Спасибо.
Along with numerous challenges, the pandemic has given us a lot of opportunities. For example, during yesterday's session with Tatiana Bakalchuk, the CEO of Wildberries, we found out that Wildberries reported a significant increase in Russian-made goods since 2020. So now I suggest that we should listen to Tatiana's speech to find out more what she thinks about that.
It's not a secret that e-commerce is not about us only. Well, e-commerce generally grew at a high pace during this time, and it was true not only about strong market players like us or Ozon, but also others like startups of large companies, for example, Yandex or Sber Logistics. E-commerce areas grew well too, and retailers, including food retailers, started developing actively in e-commerce as well. So first, a little bit about us. Now we have around 70,000 suppliers, and around 50,000 of them are small and medium businesses, 6,000 of them are self-employed, and around 25,000 are individual entrepreneurs. As for what we have noticed this year, there has been a good growth of sales of Russian-made products. Now they are around 50% as compared to 40% before, and in monetary terms that is a little bit over 2 times growth, and in kind that is around 3 times growth. And apart from Moscow and St. Petersburg, regional suppliers have grown as well, and what was surprising to us, the third place in sales now is taken by Ivanovo region. They have grown by 300%. And that is a striking success, because together with the Ivanovo region government, we have carried out several events directed at incentivizing suppliers tapping our market and entering our platform, and it has given good results. Here you can see our sales. As for why our sales started growing, before the pandemic began, we started understanding that over-bureaucratization of registration on our platform and high compliance is an impediment. And that is why we decided to simplify it. And it coincided with the beginning of the pandemic, when we turned the registration process into a simpler way. Now, instead of several days, it takes 5 minutes. And further on, we changed the paper flow, and now around 90% of it is on our side. And we want the manufacturers, the producers focus on what they are capable of, that is manufacturing the goods and producing the goods, and we would give them all the necessary infrastructure for them to grow themselves and to grow on our platform. Not long ago, we started testing the system of sales through or from warehouses that do not belong to us, and reduced our commission to 5% for selling from those warehouses. So what I would like to point out here, if we talk about consumer demand change, it has been mentioned more than once, and not only by us, that the age groups have changed. So consumers of 55 plus have gone online, and we have also noticed a huge growth in some small towns and villages. For example, we have orders in such villages and towns where the population is around 500 and 700 people. And in summer and autumn, this trend has intensified thanks to our cooperation with the Post of Russia, among other things. And now we can deliver to very little villages where our couriers could not go before because of remoteness of the areas, and we could not launch points of delivery there because the population was very little. And people were forced to shop like that, not only with us, but with other players of our sector as well. And now they understand that to a certain extent it is convenient to them. And I believe that answering the question, what will happen with consumer behavior after the pandemic, in my view, people will continue using this channel because it is convenient for them. It is convenient for the regions because they get an access to large quantity of merchandise that used to be non-accessible to them. And as for metropolises population, it saves their time really much. As for the decisions that we made to ourselves, well, it was not easy to us. We actually changed the whole logic of our work, and it implied a lot of development. And we pointed out that last year, for example, the government said that we needed to speed up digitalization, and certain experiments were launched in labor code, among other things, and in laws connected with transportation, logistics, and different bills of ladings. And back then we saw that we were lagging behind, because when we faced a need to hire 3,000 couriers at once in the conditions of lockdown, when obviously you could not check their papers or have job meeting, if there was a tool of digital recruitment, that would have helped us and other companies a lot. But we had to develop it from scratch, and we managed to come up with a solution. And what we now offer, we offer our vision in the experiments that we take part in. And we also understood to ourselves that we needed to approach cooperation in a wider sense, so to say, not only with manufacturers and suppliers. that we are good at, but with other players as well, that together build infrastructure in the market. That's why we started cooperating with companies that had postamats, with logistics companies. And I'm not talking about large companies like Sberbank or Post of Russia, but also small entrepreneurs, self-employed people or individual entrepreneurs that can start a point of order peak branded with our names or with our name or with their own name, and therefore we help them develop as well.
We'll be here with you during these 5 days, during the whole week, sharing the most cutting-edge experiences and the most interesting ideas. So there is a lot of interesting things happening. Please stay tuned and follow us. See you tomorrow.